Hey, this is John Arch, formerly of Fates Warning and currently with Arch Matheos, and you're listening to Sonic Perspective. Keep it metal, my friend.
That was awesome. Thank you. I'm on the phone with John motherfucking Arch right now, and I'm a little weirded out right now. Okay, so you and your old buddy Jim are about to drop a new album called Winter Ethereal. But before we start talking about that, I do want to ask about the nearly 2-decade gap between your final Fates Warning album, Awaken the Guardian, and your first solo album, Twist of Fate. Like, what took you so long? And why did it take another 8 years after that for the first Arch Matheos album to come out?
Yeah, that's a commonly asked question. Boy, I don't know. It is kind of a long story. A lot has happened, in between that period of time. When I left music, I don't know if I intentionally meant to stay away as long as I did. But the longer I did, it seemed the more out of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of out of contact, out of shape vocally. I felt like, I don't know, kind of like a bit of an outcast, of my own doing, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. The longer that you're away from anything, a lot of things changed. After I left Fates Warning, there was a time of kind of just going back to normal life and doing things that I really enjoyed, like mountain biking, and I work full time. I always have. So I just kind of picked up with my own life, and in that time, I definitely felt the urge to be creative. As everybody probably well knows, I'm not a real big fan of the touring aspect of it, but I always felt that need to create, and I think there was like a brief point where I auditioned for Dream Theater, and it was kind of, I had been friends with Dream Theater for a long time, so I was almost kind of like getting that itch to almost step up to the plate again. And so then auditioning for Dream Theater as friends, we kind of kept it on the thing where we'll see what happens, and it was kind of a loose thing, and if it worked out, it did, and if it didn't, then they would understand. So long story short, I did, audition for them. I was actually sleeping at Mike Portnoy's house after kind of a rehearsal or I don't know what you would want to call it, mm-hmm. kind of a short musical resume I did with them, singing some songs, and I think some of it was recorded and unbeknownst to me, but that's okay. I got up the next morning, and those guys, they're all still, they sleep until, mid-afternoon. And here I am, I'm used to my day job and stuff, so I'm up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and my phone happened to ring, and it was my wife saying that, just figured I'd let you know that we're going to have a baby. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh.
Well, so that was like, that was, I don't know. It was a combination of things, being still kind of afraid to step into those big shoes again, especially with a band like Dream Theater. Mm-hmm. The way they tour and the way they work, it would definitely mm-hmm. be a lifetime commitment. Mm-hmm. So having that, and then having that phone call kind of just scared the living daylights out of me. And I don't know. I just made a decision right then and there that, okay, well, I have responsibilities that are coming up, and mm-hmm. Obviously, and I just felt that, I don't know. I just felt that I wasn't ready to, make that big step. And so mm-hmm. after that, I don't know. It just kind of, time just went by. It just flew by. And until the chance that I had, when Jim, called me and asked me if I wanted to do something, and it ended up being kind of I don't know why we call it a me solo thing, but it worked out that way. And I remember having ideas left and really wanting to make what Twist of Fate ended up being an EP.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted to keep going and make a full album, but Jim had other commitments, and we kind of had to wrap up, with 30 minutes worth of music. But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
I don't know what took me so long, and I think it was probably the biggest thing was the fear of putting my feet back, in the water again, because I just know, what kind of big commitment it is, especially to do it full time. I never really felt that, after my departure with Fate's Warning, I didn't think that was in the, on the books for me.
I think you have a very, very good reason for kind of staying out of the loop. I mean, parenthood is a very, very big and very rewarding commitment. But, you auditioned for Dream Theater right before they got big. And, I wonder if you might have been able to have made that work.
That's something that was, unforeseen, and it's very possible. Yeah, they did get big, and I don't know. James Labrie and I are both different singers, different writers, and it's like one of those unknowns. You really don't know what would happen until it happened. And I suppose that, really deep down, if I really wanted to make something work, I think I would have tried. I would have tried harder, obviously, by not being absent for so many years. If I really thought that I wanted to have a full-time life with music, just even in the short period that I had time from early 84 till 87, that was a huge learning experience too. And that's when metal was a lot. I'm not saying bigger, but I think there was more opportunities back then.
Yeah.
For a lot of clubs being open, and it was we were riding a wave at that point, so. I don't know. That's a good question. It's kind of looking into the crystal ball. And I think everything, for me anyways, I think in hindsight, and looking to the future, I think everything, I don't think I changed much of anything. And things really worked out for me where I was able to live a good life here and pay my home off and live pretty good. And also having the opportunity to still make music. Working with Jim and some great musicians, I think I'm really lucky that I've been able to do that.
Yeah, things worked out pretty well. You definitely made the decision that was best for you and for your family. So, who are we to complain?
Yeah, I don't know. a lot of people do. A lot of people question it, but it's kind of like you just have to take charge of your own life. And when that road divides, and it divides many times, it's not just, one decision we make in our life, it's multitudes of decisions. But, when that road does divide, sometimes it's just, it's an intuitive thing and not so much based on fact, but you kind of just have an intuition, whereas you either know, this is really not probably something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And, or maybe I felt that, it's a huge risk too. So, wondering, did I have enough, confidence in myself or the music that I would be able to make a full-time living doing that? So a lot of things, but I think in the end, in my intuition just brought me where I am today.
Yeah, it is really, really great, I think, that you had that even though your first run in music was so brief, you made a hell of an impact.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And of course,
absolutely.
At the time we were doing that, we were just doing what we were doing. I don't think anybody was planning on, having such a great response to the earlier stuff and having some of the really nice comments that the fans have given us over the years. So yeah, that's another thing. Hindsight isn't 2020. You just don't know. And if you ask me, 35 or however long years later, do you think anybody would even remember your name? It's I don't think so. But, I think it's just a testament to the undying spirit of the fans. It's absolutely incredible that, here we are. I have friends that second generation, their kids are into it, and it's a pretty amazing ride, It's really cool.
That's awesome. So a couple years ago, in 2016, you did a few shows with the Awaken the Guardian era lineup of Fate's Warning. I was lucky enough to be at the Atlanta show where you guys played that entire album. The entire crowd was mesmerized the whole time, but I want to know how it felt for you to be back on stage playing with those guys back here in the United States.
Okay, so why don't I just give you the truth? And it's all good. I mean, it was a great experience. But as everybody knows that I'm, the way I feel about touring, and it's basically because I'm type A personality, and I have, another not serious issue, but something I have under control, that I deal with, and it makes performing, or actually not the actual performance, but the getting there, and it's just the building up to the actual day or days of the show that is a really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we had a long time too. It's like I think I had like a year to start singing again and to try to rehearse singing the stuff that I wrote in my very, very early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard to sing back then. Just the idea of being my age and taking on trying to sing something like that was like, oh shit. It's like, I don't know. I just said, when Jim called and asked me, I had that immediate like gut-wrenching feel in my stomach. Like, it's basically fear-based. I don't know. It's just the way I am. It's the way I'm built, and I just have to accept that. But I somehow knew that I had to say yes because, first of all, the fans have been asking for so many years, and I really owed it to them. And I had such a guilty conscience all these years by not going out and at least trying. And even if I fell on my face, that I at least had to try for the fans. So I told Jim when he called me, it was pretty quick. I said, yeah, we should do this. It's the anniversary, an anniversary and everybody else had already, stated that they were heavily into it and would love to do it. So I didn't want to be the only curmudgeon to say, yeah, okay, I don't want to do it. I just knew I had to. So, and then 2 days later, of course, Jim called me back and said, oh, by the way, we're going to do a live DVD for both shows. And I'm like, oh, you got me. So anyways, but how did it feel? So let me get to your question. The experience was, once it was said and done with me, and that's the way it always is with me. Once it's said and done, I can always sit back and say, I'm going to beat myself up. There's no question about that because that's what I always do. But in the end, I think, given all the circumstances that I don't tour all the time, that I really, in order to do something that you really need to tour all the time to be in that kind of shape, where you're going to sing live, especially that music. But I hadn't all the years. So taking that into consideration, it was a great experience for me. The fans were tremendous. They actually helped me get through the shows, and there was a few rough spots. I don't know if you noticed, like at Prague Power. I think it was Valley of the Dolls went like haywire. I think I made it through Fata Morgana, okay, but I had a new in-ear system that I was using, and I had rehearsed with it, and everything was great. So our sound check was fantastic. So it's like, okay, I mean, this is going to be good. I'll be able to hear myself instead of having those wedge monitors, which you can't even understand, blasting in my face. I was kind of psyched. But I guess what happened was that, we went on, and the mix that I had in my ears at rehearsal, well, the first note we hit, it was like, what the hell just happened? It's like all I heard was Frank Oresti on my left blasting in both of my ears. I had nothing else.
What?
I had just Frank Oresti full blast in my ears. I had no Jim, I had no drums, I had nothing, and I had no voice. So I don't know how I made it through Fata Morgana, but then we hit Valley of the Dolls, and the problem with that song is they're doing all these guitar harmonies and shit, and it's like, and they're playing kind of, I don't know if they're going in 5, and then they're going in 4, and then 6. I don't know the time signatures, but I couldn't hold myself anymore because I looked over, and the guy running the sound, the monitors, was fast asleep, and he had a speed up on the board.
Oh, no.
He was snoring away. And I'm like, what the hell, man? So I actually got lost during the verse. And so there was a moment where I wasn't even singing, and I'm like, oh, come on. So anyway, I got back on the bridge part, and luckily one of the guitar techs on the side stage saw that I was like in panic mode, and he ran over to the board, and he started to bring up the levels a little bit, so at least I could hear myself a little bit and hear the guitars and such. So,
Mhm.
anyways, that's just a little tidbit of how that show actually started. And so it was kind of a rough start, but I think instantly once you have to move forward. So we just continued on, and everything else was fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but again, so you asked me how the shows were. Again, it was a long period building up to it, but once I get up there, it's like I want to be the first guy to the top of the mountain, and it felt great. It really did. My voice, I wasn't totally 100% happy with it, but there was not a lot I could do. I just sang the best I could after not performing for so long and being older. And but the shows were great. I think it was 1 week before I hit the stage in Germany. I was feeling super, super tired and really sick, and I got diagnosed with Lyme.
Oh no!
You know what that is? So actually, Germany, I was on stage and I had just started taking the antibiotics, so I was up there with a hypermigraine and not feeling well at all. But that's life. I mean, it throws such shit at you, but I give myself credit that I got up and I did it anyway.
Yeah.
So you asked me how it was. There was moments of stress. There was moments of total connectivity with the audience and serious uplifting from the fans, and relief when it was done, and that we could say, hey, we survived this, and the fans loved it, and they were very forgiving, and I think they understand that many years have passed, and they totally understand, and they are not thinking the same way I am. They're there for the experience and to hear it live, and no matter what, they're going to be supportive. So that's what I took away from the shows.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been supportive if you guys had just not put any effort into it, but the effort was very much there. You guys sounded fantastic. There were minor technical glitches at the beginning. So what? That sort of thing happens. It's really not that big a deal, the crew corrected for it, you guys corrected for it, the show went on, everybody was happy. But I think that the most amazing thing about that set at Prog Power was your voice, because it has changed so little in the intervening 30 years. How have you managed to retain your pipes?
Man, I think the only answer I have to that is that I don't smoke. I drink occasionally, I don't do drugs, and I mountain bike, and I road ride, so I keep my cardiovascular and lungs in pretty good shape, when I'm climbing those massive hills on that mountain bike. So I think maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
And but as far as the rest of it, I did have my struggles. There was no question about it, and I think it's age. There's no question about it that it makes things harder. So you have to compensate by trying harder. And there were points in time where I was right on the edge, and I could actually hear, towards the end of the gig, I was definitely getting tired, because you can rehearse all you want in your studio or basement or garage or wherever you sing, but until you actually hit that stage and you have to sing over all the variables, and that's the only way to get the strength that you need to sing live, is to do it all the time. And that was a quick lesson learned. That oh yeah, I forgot how much effort it puts into running around and having your wind and the support system for your voice, and actually hitting the high stuff. Yeah. And the only change that I had that was very noticeable is the falsetto kind of screamy stuff. I was having an awful hard time, and I still do to this day now. I think that falsetto kind of scream thing is really hard for me now. I don't know. There's something in my voice that has changed.
Okay.
And the more I try to force it, the more it fights me. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. If it's age, if it's who knows? That's reflux. It could be a lot of different things, but or lack of trying to practice that. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. That what you said about cardio makes a lot of sense, because I have read, I'm not sure how true this is, but I've read that back in the day, Sinatra, he was a heavy smoker, but whenever it came time to record, he would start swimming a mile every morning to get his lungs back in shape. And so, and I think that you can really hear the impact because, I mean, he never sounded bad.
Oh, absolutely. No, and those are all like not multiple takes. Most
Yeah.
of those recordings are like one take, and
Hmm.
that just doesn't happen. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah,
But
barely.
yeah, that's unbelievable. The old school singers, the way they recorded, and, man. But yeah, that's the only thing that And then there are times where there are some professional singers that I know, and I know them personally and well, and they're good friends of mine, and they smoke heavy,
Hmm.
and they drink,
Hmm.
not all of them, I'm saying, but so I was thinking of actually starting to smoke and drink, and to see if that would help me uh, moving forward. But I don't know. So I guess that's all I got. I think I
Hmm.
just stayed in shape as far as physically. I stayed in shape, but there's no question about it that the voice, no matter how much you want to try to deny or fight it, that the voice does change with age. There's no
Yeah.
question, especially in a higher register. So,
Hmm.
especially that. But I appreciate. Thank you very much. I'll take that as a
Yeah,
compliment.
yeah,
But
absolutely, yeah,
thank,
yeah. And
thank,
before we move on from Hog Power, I just remembered right now. So I'm a photographer, and like I'm redoing my website right now, and in the concert photography section of my website, you appear twice.
I appear twice.
You appear twice. I hope that's okay with you.
Wow, that's that's fine. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So full disclosure. Ray Alder is a friend of mine.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Love
and
Ray.
and
Love Ray.
he spoke reverentially of you back in the day, and and he spoke of sharing the stage with you like in 1994 or something when you joined him and the rest of Fates for a duet of the Guardian.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember. I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So he talked about it as if it were a religious experience. What was it like for you?
Wow. Yeah, it brought back a lot of memories. Again, I hadn't been singing, and it's when someone mentions getting on stage, I immediately like, oh shit. It's like I panic because again, it's like you want to represent yourself in the best light, and you want to do your best, but when you
Hmm.
don't, if you're not singing and you're not performing, then obviously I'm gonna probably be struggling up there. So I don't know. It's just one of those things they asked me, and I said, sure, why not? I'll give it my best. And I think I had a
Hmm.
week to practice, and it's like, oh God, but that's nearly not enough time. But
Hmm.
anyways, especially to sing, a song in that key, or
Hmm.
but it was great. It brought back memories, because I showed up there for practice, and those guys are always goofing around, and I had an immense respect for Ray too, and I love his voice,
Hmm.
and he's just a dynamite guy too. And it was cool just being, around those guys as they were goofing around, and I felt a little out of place. My hair was really short, and you could tell. You could tell I looked like an insurance salesman or something. I was like out of my element, and and again, okay, so here I am putting myself in a place where I probably shouldn't be, but it was all about the camaraderie and having fun, and I guess for the fans too. But I don't know. I went up there and I did my best. I hear recordings of it now because it's all over the internet, and I cringe, I just cringe and sink in my seat. But you know what? It is what it is, and again, I have to revert back to the fans, just again, well received, and then I come off stage and everybody's talking to me, and it's like it's just such it was just a great experience. And that's always been the best part is the camaraderie with the band members, and Ray was very gracious, and he always has been. And the fans have always been very gracious. So it was a good night. It was a good night, and it kind of like it made me feel good.
Ray told me that some guy named Mike Portnoy was there, and that you guys literally moved him to tears.
He was there, and I actually forgot he was there. But yeah, he actually played drums, right? Yeah, he played drums for Guardian. Um,
He did?
I believe he did.
Really? Huh?
Yeah, I am like. I'm gonna have to double check. Don't quote me on that, but let's double check because actually there's a video of it. So I think Mike played drums. And
Wow.
Mike was there for that. Mike was there for that show. Yeah, and Mike and I go back a long way.
Uh-huh.
Fate's Warning was Fate's Warning before Dream Theater was Dream Theater. They were actually Majesty.
Yep.
And I think we were probably doing Spectre Within at that point, and we're playing in Long Island. And I remember meeting him. He was front and center because he lived in Long Island. They all did. And after the show, it's like he came up to Jim and I and introduced himself, and he handed us this tape. It said Majesty on it. It's like, oh, cool. And we talked for a little while, and then we listened to the tape, and it's like, wow, these guys are like, I don't know whatever the definition is progressive is, but we said, oh, they're really progressive, and they got the keyboards, going on, and it's it was impressive. So that was my first meeting with Mike, and we go back a long way. I went to his wedding. I've seen him so many times, and we spent a lot of time together. But we both have a mutual respect for each other, and he's a big fan of all eras of Fate's Warning, and especially the earlier era of Fate's Warning. And I think with Guardian, I think around that time, he had some losses in his life too, and it just meant a lot to him, and he's always expressed that to me. So he's always been a good friend and a big fan, as well as I have been for him.
Wow, what an amazing story! Thank you for telling me that.
Sure. Yeah,
and it seems like kind of a no-brainer that he ended up playing on A Twist of Fate.
Yeah, we've always kind of wanted to work together and do something, so it was a good opportunity, for that to happen, and I'm glad that something finally happened, because the bands have so much musical history, Fate's Warning, and in our friendship, so there's so much history there, and it was just nice to be able to correspond and do something musically,
Let's fast forward to Arch Matheos. The first Arch Matheos album came out like in 2011. Whose idea was it for you and Jim to start collaborating again after like another 8-year gap?
9 times out of 10, it's Jim's idea.
Okay.
And I'll get to that later on. But so this actually came about, for what particular reasons but the music itself that Jim was in the process of writing was designed for Fate's Warning album and for Ray. So at some juncture, something happened. I'm not really sure. I don't know. I never asked and tried. But Jim had called me and said, look, I have this music that I'm in the process of writing, and I don't know if Ray couldn't work with it or whatever the story was, but he said, is there something you want to listen to? And and if you're interested, and if it hits you the right way, and you think that you can do something with it, would you be interested in coming up and at least hearing it? And I said, yeah, okay. So it was just one of those things. So sometimes, something hits me, and I just say yes. So I went up there, and Jim, I don't know exactly, I don't remember what he had. He had a couple that were almost completed, and maybe 1 or 2 that were in the works, I think. Don't quote me on that one either. But anyway, he was playing me, what he had come up with, and I liked it. I liked what I was hearing, and it was cool. And I was sitting in the studio that I was really familiar with, And sometimes, I spent so much time, that it kind of felt like home. And it's it's Jim's studio in New Hampshire, so it's a really comfortable atmosphere, and we have nobody breathing down our backs, and we can kind of let our creative minds work without being under a lot of pressure for time and stuff. So so anyways, so then I said, why don't we'll see where it goes. So one thing led to another, and I just started writing. I don't even remember the first song I started writing with him, but I know Midnight Serenade was one of the early ones that I started working on. And it just seemed that the more, once the nerves subsided, and once I could hear that my voice was kind of semi-cooperating, like, then I kind of know that, okay, well, let's just assume that the more I do this, the better it'll get. So, and that's what I did. So then one thing led to another, and then one song led into the next song, and before you know it, we had what I thought was kind of near a complete album worth of material, and I was actually working on a song acoustically, Incense and Myrrh, and so I had that song. I said, can I bring you another song, because I think the album seems a little short, and I wouldn't mind doing another song or two. And so he said, yeah. So anyways, I played him Incense and Myrrh on guitar on my acoustic, and Jim is great. He embellishes, and he's good at organizing the song and helping me along the way. So once Jim got involved, everything seemed to take shape. So Incense and Myrrh fell into the mix, and then we had the full album. I'm not sure of the time frame, how long it actually took, but it seemed that album, there's no question, came together a lot faster than Winter Ethereal did. Winter Ethereal seemed to take an eternity for me, but that's how that album came about, and it was kind of like off the cuff. It took a phone call, and that led to me taking out some material that was written for Fate's Warning and putting my own twist on it.
Yeah, and it was even that incarnation of Fate's Warning that was on that album. It was just basically like Fate's Warning at that time with you. So I thought it was really cool. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We caught a little bit of a flack for that, but and it wasn't intentional. I mean, it's like we weren't. It's not like we're, it was a project, and it's not like we're forming another band or anything like that, So of course there was a little bit of confusion with the fans and all that stuff, and that's why, when they go say, well, what are you going to call yourselves? It's like, well, we should probably just like stay away from coming up with any kind of band name or something. Just call it whatever, Matheos Arch March, Matheos, any order you want to put it in, I don't care. and that way there, but still having the current Fate's Warning members on that, it was great. I mean, you couldn't ask for better musicians.
Nah.
They totally kicked us every time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Okay. You just opened a can of worms a moment ago. Why?
I always do.
Yeah. And you've done it again. Why is it that Winter Ethereal took such a long time? Why was that songwriting process so drawn out?
First of all, it's a longer album. I think it's an hour and 10, which I'm very happy about. I always like a little bit, not too long, because attention spans tend to wane after an hour or so. But I'm happy that it worked out to be a little bit longer instead of like shortchanging the fans. And I don't mean that in a derogatory term. I just like to have a full album.
Right.
So I think that it's a longer album, but also there was something about these songs, working on them where, Jim and I, when we work together, typically 99% of the time, Jim gets inside his own head and he starts the writing process with his musical compositions. Then when he feels that he has something to offer, where it's in a raw form as far as, whatever's designed for verse, chorus, bridge, whatever, he gives it to me and I take it and I listen to it over and over and over again, sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning. And what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to get an emotional response out of myself, as well as an intellectual response for, a subject matter. It starts to hit me one way or another, and sometimes I'll come up with an album title first, or not an album title, what am I talking about? Song title first, or maybe I'll start humming melody lines, and those will come first. But for whatever reason, this album was very scattered in the way that my mind was working. Maybe because I was working on so much at one time. Jim would give me something to work on. And as I was working on that, I'm always behind the 8 ball because he's already beginning to work on something else. But along the way, it's a give and take situation in the writing process. And a lot of times, most times with the songs, is when he hands it to me, I got to interpret it as a vocalist. And I need, first of all, breathing room. And when I start writing, sometimes it takes a little bit of a different direction. So sometimes I'm asking Jim maybe to add a section. Listen, can you double up on that verse? Because I really like it doubled. I got more to say. Or we need a break in between this movement and another movement. So we need something that musically will fit, but maybe not have any vocals on it to give the fans time to reflect, stuff like that. And I think there's a lot more of that in this album where the way the songs were composed, we both of us worked really hard at making the songs more dynamic and more complete, and in a good way. So I don't know if that makes sense of how I'm trying to convey that. But it just that part of it took a long time. There was a lot of back and forth on, okay, so maybe Jim made an edit on something and sent it back to me, and if I don't like it, he understands.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, we lock horns, and sometimes, it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, and I don't mean it. It's kind of when I say lock horns, it's like neither one of us kind of want to budge because maybe he likes part A better and I like part B better. But somehow along the way we'll come up with a compromise.
Okay.
And sometimes the compromise actually ends up better than A or B, so then we end up both happy. So that's the way that this whole album seemed to be a lot more of that. It was like each song was almost like an act of Congress. Almost. I don't think anything in this on this album came easy for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because Jim had just back-to-back albums, right? And I had been out of it for a while, so I don't know for what reason. It's just the music was really, really challenging to write to this time too. So.
Okay, so you guys have been working remotely then as you're composing this music. I wonder, I'm sure back in the day you kind of did that sort of thing in the practice room quite a bit. Have you considered doing something like that these days?
Well, really the way that Jim works and the way that I work as far as being co-writers, Jim writing the compositions and me writing the lyrics and the melody lines. Mm-hmm. Jim, like I said, Jim, when he writes, he gets into his own head, his heart, or wherever his inspiration comes from, and that's really alone time for him, where he needs to be. And same thing for me. When I write lyrics or melody lines, it's pretty much I need quiet. I need to close my eyes. I need darkness sometimes. I need to be able to think. I need to kind of connect. I need to connect to a place where it's a little bit removed from the chaos. Like if somebody drops something, it's like, oh, you snap me out of my. It's not that bad, but it's like I need my private space. So being that we write like that, it's really beneficial where he does his aspect of it and I do my aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Then when we're ready, when we both do our homework, then we bring it together. Okay. And then we go through the demo process where let's see what works and what doesn't work and what we need to improve on, musically, vocally, vocal lines. Okay, I find out that something in my head, it worked beautifully in my head, but when it came out of my mouth, it was like, oh shit, that's not happening. So, you know what I mean? You got to go through that process. It's not like some people say, look, I sat on the bowl today and I wrote a whole song. It's like, well, good for you. I can't do that. It's like I need to. It's a total process, almost a process of elimination, what you don't play and then what you keep. So, so I think it's better for us. We've always worked that way, and I think it yields better results. Like if we were both in this, studio at the same time trying to do, there would probably wouldn't be productive. I don't think it would be maybe conflicts. And the only thing I can add to that is like when I stayed over at Jim's, in the studio late into the night, after I was done with my vocals and Jim was like laying guitar tracks down for hours on end. I was privy to that. I was just laying on a couch with the headphones on, listening to him work for a couple hours, 3 hours. And it was pretty amazing to listen to him, relentlessly get everything so tight and change his parts and ask me, well, what do you think about this instead of that? And it was just a cool experience. But to answer your question, I think, we kind of need to be in our own element to get our own shit together first individually and then come together.
Okay, so practicing in the same room would have just made everything even worse.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like back in the day, when we did do that, I think we still operated in the same way. When we had our practice nights, and I think we practiced 4 nights a week religiously. And so then on the off nights, that's what we would do. We would all go home, and Jim would work on his shit. I would work on my stuff. We would all have our little cassette tapes, and we'd take them home, and you know what I'm saying? So it was all the same. It was pretty much the same way back then. And then when we got to the practice room, sometimes things would happen spontaneously, and that was some of the best stuff. And I can say that about the recording process as well. like doing vocals, a lot of stuff I have planned.
Okay.
But then all of a sudden, something spontaneous will happen. I don't know where the hell it comes from, but it's just what the music would move you in a certain direction, and you would do something spontaneous. Just out of the blue, and sometimes that would be, okay, I like that a lot better than what I had.
Okay, you have to give me an example now.
Oh, man. Well, I will, let me go back to Guardian.
Okay.
In Exodus, those high screams at the end.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty spontaneous. And let me tell you, it's a fun tidbit.
Okay.
We were in the studio, and we started, I think, at maybe noontime. I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was still doing vocals.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was I don't know, at least 10 hours straight vocals.
Oh my God.
And so it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and here we are. We're at that point, and I was so freaking exhausted. I couldn't see straight. But then at that point, it's just I don't know what happened. Spontaneously, I just hit it with everything I had. And that's where those came from. And I don't know where they came from, the recesses of my ass. I have no idea, but it's dug really deep for that.
They came from your own delirium.
I don't exactly. But that was an example of something that was just spontaneous that ended up being a keeper,
Cool.
I haven't done anything like that in quite a few years, but a little more subtle changes these days.
I know that Mark Zonder and Bobby Jarzambek both play on Winter Ethereal, but I don't know who else is on the album. Who else are we hearing?
See, it's a good thing I have a list right here in front of me because you know what? It's been, I forget myself, but I can't forget. So on bass, Steve DiGiorgio. That's that.
Oh, yes.
So just awesome bass player, absolutely killer, and he's Testament, Eister, Sebastian Bach.
Yep, Status, Winterstorg, so many.
Yeah, he's a monster in person, and he's a monster on bass, great guy, and I think he played on 3, Vermilion Moons, Wrath, and Straight and Narrow. And then on bass also, Sean Malone, who absolutely kills it. God. Cynic and Gordian Knot, right? Yeah.
Yes, Gordian Knot.
So Pitch Black Prism and also Kindred Spirits, which he just does such a great job on. I'll just say that everybody that played on this album just did such a great job, and I couldn't be happier with everybody's playing and their writing too. And then of course the appearance from Joe Tobias, original bass player.
Nice.
From Fate, so he does Solitary Man. So happy he was able to do that. Joe Rivera, of course. Wanderlust and Never in Your Hands. And then on drums, Thomas Lang. He plays on Vermilion Moon, Solitary Man, and Pitch Black Prism. He's just another one that kills it, and what a talented drummer. Just love everything that he did. I think he plays a lot of session drumming, and I'm not really sure of any band that he plays with full time, but at any rate, top notch. And of course, nothing would be the same without Bobby Jarzambek. He's on Wrath and Straight and Narrow. And every time I hear him play, I just get chills. So enough said. And Mark Zonder, we're really happy to have him too. And a lot of fans were happy to hear that Mark plays on Wanderlust and on Tethered. And Matt Lynch, another drummer who just absolutely shines, is on Kindred Spirits. I believe he plays a Cynic. And I really love his drumming on Kindred Spirits. That's a 12-minute song on the end of the album.
Yeah. It's a bit of a journey, that one.
Oh, good. Good.
That
you've heard. I didn't know if you heard him.
I was listening to it this entire morning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bard, Bjard. I don't know with 2 A's. Bard Kolstad played drums on Never in Your Hands from Leprous.
Oh,
and,
yes.
He's got a very unique style. A killer drummer. Love everything. I love what he did.
Yeah.
And then Frank Aresti makes some lead guitar appearances.
Awesome.
And again, fans are going to be really happy. And I'll mention that Jens Bogren of Fascination Street Studios and Tony did the mastering, and they did a great job. So there you have and Jim and I. So there you have the personnel on this album.
That's a hell of a payroll, man. Wow, such beast, dude.
the best part about it is all these guys are like, you have a challenge because you have different musicians with different styles, different sounds,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the engineering and the final mixing and mastering. It was a challenge to get everything to sound cohesive. But
Mm-hmm.
having said that, everything sounds really cohesive
Yeah.
with the playing, and it gives, I think, the listener a really varied experience having this many different players, but just it sounds like they all belong together
Yeah,
for some reason.
it totally does. It totally does. I wanted to ask you about some of the songs on the album. Vermilion Moons. Is there something about the atmosphere in Vermilion, South Dakota, that makes it appear as if we have more than just one moon?
I don't know.
I've been to a place called Vermilion. I only saw one moon. What?
Oh, there's actually a Vermilion where you. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
now I get it.
in
Okay,
South
sorry.
Dakota. Yep, it's okay.
Oh God. Okay, yeah. Now I get it. Okay. Yeah, no, this is really. I know it sounds plural, but a Vermilion Moon was actually. I saw a picture of a Vermilion Moon, and it was so spooky with the trees in the foreground, and in that song, I don't know. It was more of an atmosphere kind of song after seeing that picture, and it turned into a lot of different things. But it's got religious overtones, and it actually I was raised Catholic, and I'm not a practicing Catholic, and I do not diss religion on any level. I think everybody is. I have respect for people with faith and all that stuff. So don't get me wrong, but
Okay.
Vermilion Moons, it was almost a sarcastic kind of approach to all the predictions that have been made over thousands of years. Whereas, the prophets,
Like about the second coming and that sort of thing, Harold Camping types.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And, biblical proportions, and so this song is kind of a play on that.
Okay.
Whereas, and I tend to hit on throughout the album the ego of humans, and
Okay.
Especially with Wrath of the Universe. But this one in particular, I'm kind of poking fun at
Mm-hmm.
man and with predictions and maybe it's all the Catholic schooling I went through, that made me turn to this. But
Yeah.
if you read the real lyrics, it's almost like that story where the preacher brings everyone to the side up to the top of the hill, saying, "This is the end of time. This is the end of times for everybody." And they all sit and they wait, and the sun comes up and it goes down, and then it comes up again the next day.
Yep.
Well, it's kind of like that with this song, and I'm kind of poking at the fun of that. Here we are, alive and well, and still here we are dancing under vermilion moons. So it's not an anti-religion song at any stretch, but it's almost like a I'm trying to think of the word, a song of like just celebrating life and not living under that black cloud of gloom and doom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as you read through the lyrics, you will see biblical references. You will see things of that nature, and of worshiping and waiting in living your every fiber for the end of time. I don't think that's the way it should be. And so and again, I write to what Jim comes up with it and how it hits me. And this song, for some reason, when I heard that song, and it almost has those kind of metal roots to it, older metal roots. But also some, intricate changes and some very, very spacey, eerie kind of breakaways on that song. And I just think that subject matter, for some reason, it just fit the song,
I really, really regret that I don't have access to the lyrics, like with these advanced downloads that we get of the music. Like, we don't see the lyrics out, and like your lyrics have like always been like one of the things that have set you apart from other singers. Like, you might be the only lyricist in metal, like other than like Ronnie James Dio, that has consistently written fantasy-inspired lyrics that I not only appreciate but love, because like fantasy is just not my thing. But the way that you do it and your command of the English language is vivid and fluid enough that I call it poetic. So yeah, like I just had to tell you that. I had to.
I appreciate that more than you know, because yeah, a lot of work goes into all aspects of it. But a lot of the lyrics are painstaking, and it has to fit the music, and it has to fit everything.
Unfortunately, John and I had to leave it right there, as he had another interview lined up, and I had a kid to pick up from school. However, John Arch is quite a gentleman indeed, and offered to continue our discussion later that same week. Part 2 of my conversation with John Arch will drop in the upcoming days. Please remember to subscribe to us on Stitcher, Apple, Google Play in order to get notified every time we drop a new interview or release a new episode of our Talking Perspectives podcast. And also, be sure to follow, like, and stalk us on Facebook and Twitter. Head on over to sonicperspectives.com for news, interviews, album reviews, and live photos of all your favorite prog rock and metal. This is Gonzo signing off, and we're going to finish it off with that cut that we heard at the top of the interview. From the new Jim Matheos album, Winter Ethereal, this is Straight and Narrow.